Elections are the core pillar of any functional democracy all across the world. But what if these same elections are put under a very big question by the opposition party, the principal opposition party of a country? In that case, if elections of a country are put under question mark, the same democratic fabric of the society is under question, and same democracy is under threat. Now, similar thing is happening in our country since the last few weeks, where the principal opposition party, that is Indian National Congress, has been alleging Election Commission of India to be corrupt, and has said that Election Commission of India has failed in discharging its constitutional duty to ensure free and fair electoral system in the country. And they've also said that it has now become very clear that Election Commission of India is not being led by officers who can ensure a level playing field for all the political parties, for all the candidates. And alongside this, the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, Shri Rahul Gandhi ji, has put forward several proofs in relation to vote theft conducted allegedly by the Election Commission of our country.
There's 6.5 lakh voters and literally 1 lakh of those don't exist. पूरा system उड़ा दिया है, चोरी हो रही है. Election Commission ने महाराष्ट्र में जादू से 1 करोड़ नए वोटर पैदा कर दिए.
Now, while Election Commission of India has done a press conference and has said that all these allegations of electoral fraud are baseless and invalid, but still the India bloc, the principal opposition bloc of our country, has said that they are considering a motion of removal of Chief Election Commissioner of our country. So, in the current ongoing session of the Parliament, the principal opposition leaders are considering the removal of Chief Election Commissioner. So, this makes us very important for us to understand the process for removal of Chief Election Commissioner from our country. So, what is the issue all about? What is the process for removal of Chief Election Commissioner? What is the process of appointment of Chief Election Commissioner? And all other related things, which as a common citizen you should know. All these things we'll be trying to understand in today's session. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh and you're watching Perspective. So Article 324 of our Indian Constitution and Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners Act of 2023 lays down the provisions for appointment, tenure and removal of Chief Election Commissioner in our country. Now, overall, if we see, the Election Commission of India is entrusted or is given with the responsibility of conducting free and fair elections in the country. Now, if we talk about the process of appointment, the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners are appointed by the Honorable President of India upon the recommendation of a 3-member selection committee. Now, this 3-member selection committee, it comprises of first Prime Minister, second the Leader of Opposition, and second 1 member of Union Cabinet. So all these 3 people, they decide who is going to be the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners. They recommend the same to the President, and President then appoints the Election Commissioners and Chief Election Commissioner of our country. Also, according to the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners Act of 2023, it is very important that those who are appointed into these positions should have previously held secretary level positions in the government of India. And also, they should be persons of integrity and should have knowledge or should have any experience in relation to management and conduct of elections in our country. If these conditions are met, then they would be chosen as a candidate by the 3-member select committee. Also, one more important thing is that the appointment is made for a tenure of 6 long years or the age of 65, whichever comes earlier. And also, one more important thing is that in order to make the office impartial and in order to make the office independent, the Chief Election Commissioner exercises same level of a monetary benefit and service benefit which are extended to the judges of Supreme Court of India. And which is why similar thing would be reflected in the process of removal as well. Because, see, Election Commission as an institution in itself and Chief Election Commissioner who's heading the Election Commission and who's in a way heading the whole electoral process of the country, there are many cases where the Election Commission's office or the Chief Election Commissioner's office can become biased towards a political party. Which is why our constitution makers and our legislatures, they thought very deliberately and they chose Election Commission to be an independent authority. Which is why in the process of removal, they have made the process of removal of Chief Election Commissioner very, very difficult. And under Article 324 itself, Article 324 Section 5, you will see that the Constitution states that Chief Election Commissioner can be removed from office only in the like of manner on the grounds of a judge of a Supreme Court. And also the same framing could be found in the 2023 Act under Section 11, subsection 2. So which basically means that the way judge of a Supreme Court is removed, in the similar way Chief Election Commissioner of a country would be removed. However, same level of immunity is not given to the election commissioners of the country. And the same article, and it also goes on to say that any other election commissioners or regional commissioners shall not be removed from office except on the recommendations of Chief Election Commissioner of our country. This simply means that the protection from removal has been given, or the process of removal has been made very tedious for the Chief Election Commissioner. But the same has not been done for election commissioners of our country, because to remove the election commissioners of our country, we have to take recommendation from the Chief Election Commissioner. That is very clear. And even for the regional commissioners as well. And this was simply done in order to shield the Election Commission of India from any political pressures. And which is why the bar for removing Chief Election Commissioner from our country is set really high. But now you might ask the question that if the process of removal of CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, is similar to the process of a removal of a judge of the Supreme Court, what is the process of removal of a judge of the Supreme Court? Now that can be seen under Article 124 of our Constitution. If you see Article 124, Section 4, it states that the removal of a Supreme Court judge can only be on the grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity. Which means the same is the provision for the Chief Election Commissioner as well. Which means Chief Election Commissioner can be removed only on the grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity. Now the term misbehavior is having a lot of meanings over there. A lot of underlining meanings are there of misbehavior. It just does not mean the English translation of it. But it also involves corrupt practices, or it also involves cases or instances of abuse of office by the Chief Election Commissioner. Or over the years, court has interpreted this particular term in very different ways. Which means there can be this proved misbehavior, can be the actions which are incompatible for the office of Chief Election Commissioner or of a judge, or inability of a Chief Election Commissioner to discharge the official duties in a proper way. So proved misbehavior and incapacity, basically there can be a lot of interpretation for these two words by the Supreme Court of our country. So the grounds of removal are very clear. Same for the judge of the Supreme Court and same for the Chief Election Commissioner. Proved misbehavior and incapacity. But the question is, how does the process of removal of a Supreme Court judge or Chief Election Commissioner starts? Now for this, that is to initiate the removal of Chief Election Commissioner, members of both the House of the Parliament of our country, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, must bring a notice of a motion explicitly alleging the misbehavior or explicitly alleging the incapacity against the Chief Election Commissioner. So basically a motion alleging incapacity or misbehavior can be introduced in either House of the Parliament, that is either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha, and a support of at least 50 member of parliaments is required for its admission. For the motion to be admitted in the House, at least 50 members of Parliament should support it. And after the motion is admitted by the House, then the inquiry starts into the matter. So whatever is the allegation against the Chief Election Commissioner, an inquiry commission would be set. And an inquiry is conducted to examine the validity of the charge against the Chief Election Commissioner. Now this also involves forming a committee to investigate any evidence of misbehavior or incapacity against the Chief Election Commissioner. And once the charges are validated by this particular committee, eventually then the motion is given to the House to be passed. And in that particular House, the motion should be passed by the 2/3 majority of the members present and voting. So which means that 2/3 majority of both the House of the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, 2/3 of the members present and voting should pass the motion, and once the motion is passed by the entire Parliament of the country, then the motion goes to President, and then eventually President orders removal of Chief Election Commissioner. Also in the case of President, there are no discretions because the constitutional requirements are already met, which means the President here acts on the advice of the Parliament. And if the Parliament passes the motion, President has to sign on that motion and remove the Chief Election Commissioner. Also, one more important thing to note here is that since independence till now, no Chief Election Commissioner has been removed from office in this particular manner. And the process of removal has been made so tedious, or the process of removal has been made so cumbersome, and it is very difficult to achieve 2/3 majority in both the Houses of the Parliament and in order to remove the Chief Election Commissioner, which is why till now, since independence, no Chief Election Commissioner has been removed so far. Now, many would argue why to have such high constitutional threshold for removal of the Chief Election Commissioner and for the judges of Supreme Court? See, if we see both the organizations, if we see judiciary as a whole and Supreme Court as the beacon of judiciary and Chief Election Commissioner, or which is the beacon of the Election Commission of the country, both the institution in a working democracy, in a practical democracy, in a functioning democracy, both the institutions hold a very high prominence. If both the institutions in any way or manner are compromised, it delegitimizes the idea of democracy in itself, the idea of free and fair election in itself, the idea of free and fair country in itself. Which is why for democracy to exist in its truest form, both the institutions, that is judiciary and election commission, needs to be independent of any political pressure or any political interference which might hinder or which might make their functioning in a biased way. However, coming to the current situation, the allegations put forward by the leader of opposition of Lok Sabha are very, very serious. Now, coming to the present situation, the allegations put forward by the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha are very, very serious, and it definitely questions the entire functioning of electoral democracy, and it also questions the functioning of election commission as a whole in the last many years. Which is why, in order to ensure that people gain trust on the election commission and on the electoral process, and to regain people's trust, election commission should come up with sweeping reforms, should release digital data for the public to pursue, for the public to scrutinize, and also should make all the processes of itself in a very transparent way. Should list down all the processes, should list down all the names of the voter list and all the other requirements of the opposition party and the public in a very transparent way according to the Right to Information Act. If that is done, the public's trust and credibility over election commission would be restored. If it is not done, and if people's trust and credibility over election commission is diluted in any way or manner, it won't be going well for our overall electoral democracy. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. Do let me know what are your views regarding it. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.